gets you through harder conversations and conflicts and makes you comfortable, sharing your ambitions with your manager or something like that. Whereas if you don't have that personal connection, it's really hard to feel the same way about the people you work with.
That's so true. Hello and welcome to another Leads to Growth podcast. I'm your host, Chris McCoy, and very excited to have a guest with us today that I actually went and scoped out, man. This guy rolled through my news feed and an article that just caught my eye, and I'm like, I want to talk to this guy right here. We've got Chris Ronzio with us today. How you doing, Chris?
I'm great. Thanks for scoping me out. I appreciate the invite.
Absolutely. I was in my newsfeed and LinkedIn, and I see this article come through, and it says Chris Ronzio, CEO, is offering $5,000 to anyone who wants to quit in their first month of training. I was like, I love this guy already. And then I went and checked him out, and then obviously good ideas come from somebody who's done some good things. And this guy's CEO and founder of Trainual, who does a lot of great things in onboarding. I'm gonna let Chris tell us a little bit more about that. But also Entrepreneur of the Year in 2021, Phoenix Business Journal 40 Under 40. Author of a new book in September. Congratulations. I just put it in the Amazon cart today. So
thank you.
Looking forward to the business playbook. Yes, sir. Well, great to have you here, Chris. Thanks for joining us today, man.
Yeah, this will be fun. So where do you want to dig in?
I mean, let's start with what caught my attention, man. Big shift. We've got the great resignation, all these things happening right now, and you making big moves, responding to some good things. What inspired you to make this shift of offering 5K to someone to quit?
So this is something we started doing in May of 2020. And the original idea happened because we had a developer, an engineer that started with us. And 5 days into his training, he spoke up and he said to the hiring team and to his manager, I think this was the wrong fit. And so, of course, we dug into that and tried to figure out why. And he felt like he should be more in a managerial position. He had another offer that was more in that vein. And so he just decided after 5 days, I've seen enough. I could see where this is going, and I think I made the wrong choice. And I super respected that. I appreciated that he brought that to our attention. And we thought, well, how many people have a similar experience and just kind of know in the back of their head that this isn't really what I signed up for? And if that's the case, we need to do a better job in the hiring process, in the screening process, in the interviewing process, and the training process to figure that out. And so we put this little thing in place, just kind of a pulse check 2 weeks into someone's training, which is after they've met everyone, done the meet the team, gone through our company basic training. We ask them a simple question: do you want to stay here? If you do, fine, that's great. Let us know why. And if you don't, we're offering you a dollar amount that you can actually quit. You can take it to leave. And the hope is that this kind of softens the blow a little bit, that, if you need to go back to the drawing board and you're unemployed for a couple of weeks, and this kind of helps smooth that over. So initially it was $2,500. And I'll tell you, some of I'm not sure I've said this on many interviews, but the original amount was because we give everybody a MacBook Pro and some other things. And so the original amount was kind of like, return your computer and we'll give you basically the equivalent,
Right.
So it's to prevent stealing. But no one took it. So for over a year, no one took this offer. And so we doubled it to $5,000, and still no one's taken it. So I think it's a testament to the team and the emphasis that we've put on making this experience great. But I also think it's a really cool, point in time for that new person to just confirm and opt in and say, yes, I definitely still want to be here now that I've been inside.
It's powerful, reconfirming and remaking that decision over again, right? Not telling them they should be here, but giving them the chance to ask themselves, right? Because when $5,000 on the table, you've got to ask yourself the question. You got to weigh it out there. You're making a decision. And I think that's the big thing. I think most of the time people get pushed into doing something because something happens. They do this, they do this. It's not really a decision. It's more of a dilemma. But when you give them that chance to make a choice, you get the recommitment, which probably ensures more stability in the long term, which is brilliant repercussion or consequence, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever been in a Zoom meeting that starts to run long and somebody will say like, hey, if anybody needs to jump off, like, feel free to jump off. And then you'll get like half of the room signs off the meeting, but nobody would have signed off because they're all sitting there like, I don't want to be the first one. I don't want to make this awkward. And so it's kind of doing the same thing for someone's employment. Like, if you want to jump off, like, now's the time, and somebody can raise their hand.
I love it. And I mean, the best part is it's probably had like the concerns, maybe finances, like, I don't know, right? You probably had to go through this conversation of raising it to 5,000, but what if everybody does? And then you get the opposite consequence. So I congratulate for trying something bold and new and putting it out there, because it's also it's your brand of companies. You represent onboarding, and you represent this solidifying of investing in your employees, and they'll stay with you. Totally. So I think it's a great branding piece as well.
Well, thank you. And I wouldn't recommend everyone do this. If you're getting tons of people quitting and your turnover is a huge problem for you, you don't want to put like a financial tax against yourself for this and just start paying everybody to leave. You want to fix those problems. But, we fortunately had really good retention. It was just those like one or two people that would quit a few months into the job or 9 months in and take another gig, and you're like, well, that's strange. Was this like that short of a stepping stone, or like, what didn't we see? And so the hypothesis is they probably know from their first couple of weeks of just diving in that it's not the long-term fit.
That's beautiful. And this comes from, I read this in your bio, you're a systems and processes guy. So I imagine when these little nuances come up, I imagine it just kind of lights you up a little bit. Ooh, I wonder how we can solve this little thing, totally. and then create a solution for someone else. So tell me about what y'all are doing at Trainual.
Yeah,
I did my own research, but I mean, CEO and founder, would love to hear it from the man himself.
Sure. So Trainual, the original name came from a training manual, and the idea that growing businesses eventually start to write down their systems and processes and how they do things. Like, what is the way that this company operates? And so small companies, as they grow, need to do that to protect the consistency of the product or service that they offer, and to start to build culture so that everybody is kind of doing the same thing, talks the talk, walks the walk. And the idea of having a business playbook is really what Trainual was built to solve. And so particularly smaller companies that we work with, they're just trying to centralize all this knowledge and say, what is our culture all about? What is our vision? Who is our target customer? How do we go and get that customer? What does everyone do around here? And so all of that stuff is what goes into your playbook, and that's what you put into Trainual. And so Trainual is a software tool where you can document all this stuff, videos, slides, text, embedded audio files from 700 different locations. You can embed things in Trainual. Wow. Then you can break it up by roles and responsibilities, and you can track that people have actually gone through it and seen it. So it's really an alignment tool is what it is. It's like, here's the company's expectation. Do you understand?
I love it. Your language is beautiful. Culture and alignment, I heard in there, and how important. I mean, I talk to companies all the time that when you ask them what is their, who's your target client, who's your target prospect, what are the territories around here, right? Like any of these questions that you ask, there should be a response. What is your differentiator between your top competitor? Right. Like there should be a set of programmed responses that you have, or maybe not everybody uses them, but most people don't even know what they are. And so this concept is really, really great, especially for fast growing, scaling companies. I mean, I find that's one of the more difficult things they do. They ride on some success, and they just kind of hold their hands up and go, wee. So
yeah. And especially now where people are changing companies a lot. You used to have businesses where people would be there for a decade or more. And so there was a lot of this like institutional knowledge, and okay, if I have a question, I go to Chris. But what if Chris isn't there anymore? Now who do you go to?
Transfer of knowledge. Yeah.
Or what if you're all logging in from different places and you're working in different time zones? Like, where do you go for those questions and those how-tos? You've got to have something like this.
Yeah, and I can't just stop by Chris's office and knock on the door and say, "Hey, Chris, what do I do now?" Because obviously you're in another state now, right? And I'm remote. So, man, what a perfect time for this. And I really love the alignment. So, how often do you bring in things that are on the culture side of things? Values. Those types of things. How often are those integrated into your systems?
All the time. That's nice. One of the most common things that gets put in the system. So when I talk about, documentation and training, or when you think about it, you start really wide. with what is the content that applies to everyone in the department or everyone in the organization. And so the basic building blocks of your company are your culture, your vision, your mission, your story, your values. It's what makes this company unique. Who are we existing to serve? And all of that applies to everyone in the business. It doesn't matter what position they have or what tasks they're doing day to day. And so when people start working with Trainual, that's a big part of what they start with, because that's onboarding and orienting you to the company and to say like, this is what we do as a business. And so everyone should have some documentation around that and get their people aligned around that.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a great conversation with Jerry Bruner recently, and he was telling us how, when his new SDRs or his new team starts, that they know what's on their agenda for the next 2 to 3 weeks of their onboarding. Like they already get before they even start, a week before they start, they know. I talk to still people to this day, like I start on Monday, I have no idea what's going on. Like, I'm waiting for an email address. I don't know.
So I think, this is outside of what happens in Trainual. With Trainual, you can build the documentation, you can build the process, all the content that someone's going to absorb. But even outside of that, every business should have an onboarding structure where what someone is doing on their calendar Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of their first week. What meetings do you set up in advance for them to get to know different team members, to get to know direct reports, to get to know people they're reporting to? What social events might you have, remote or in person, to get everybody to know each other? We have a cohort starting this week, and it's like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. is stacked with activities. And now in there, you have the personal time for them to go through their onboarding content, in our case, to use Trainual. And that gives them the space to learn at their own pace. So it's not that there's, stuff being jammed down their throat at every day, every hour, but you need structure. You need to know what the first week, the second week, the first month looks like.
I completely agree. And I see that there's such a beautiful and obvious correlation between onboarding and retention that I think is plainly obvious to most people, but some people still aren't getting it. I mean, I still people say, come in, grab a territory, there's some leads and a phone, and here's your Salesforce login.
How many terrible first dates get to a second date?
Ooh, well said, Chris. Well said. Yeah.
It's that simple. It's like, you want a great initial experience. That's how you retain someone. That's how you keep people around.
Absolutely. And, certainty is something that most new employees are looking from you, and so giving them those steps, giving them the next steps, and allowing them to build their own certainty is a huge part of growing that employee's confidence. And so really, really love what y'all are doing. So tell me about the book. Tell me about the playbook.
Yeah. So the business playbook, it's a concept that you hear probably a lot in sales. There are sales playbooks, and really it applies to all areas of business. And it's a simple concept because it's kind of an analogy from sports. You've got the plays that you run, the things that you do, and you want to collect those all into a book where you can access all those plays. And so, as a operations kind of guy myself, growing up as an entrepreneur, for me, I learned the systems and processes and operations, and you hear terms like, training and compliance and training manuals and operations manuals. And that stuff's not that sexy. Nobody says, clear my schedule, I'm making a training manual, look out. But you get the concept of a playbook. And so as we launched Trainual and started doing more sales demos and talking to customers, the concept really resonated. People love the idea of like, I want a playbook for my business. And so then the next obvious question is, okay, well, how do you make one? What goes inside one? Who helps you make it? When do you roll it out? And that's all the content that's in my book. So, initially the idea from the book was, was percolating as Trainual was starting, but I felt like this isn't the right time. Let's wait until we've got customers around the world, until we've got, repeat patterns. And that's when to write the book. And so, now we've got over 7,000 companies using the tool, growing 183 countries that the businesses are in. And so it felt like now we can zoom out and take this macro approach and say, what is a business playbook? How do you make one?
That's great, man. So scaling the company, you obviously grown and scale, but I mean, we had this beautiful time period that just kind of rolled in for you, which I imagine was, I imagine the business was formed. They both probably had a little to do with each other, didn't they?
Well,
This time that we went through in Trainual.
yeah, I mean, the business was around pre-pandemic, but the pandemic definitely accelerated things. The biggest
Nice.
change was that it used to be only more mature companies would dedicate the time and effort into this.
Was my
And so
next question.
yeah,
Yeah.
so the biggest thing that happened was, everybody goes remote in March of 2020 or whatever it is, and you're trying to figure out like, okay, now I can't just slide my chair over and ask someone. Yeah, there's tools like,
Yeah.
chat tools and email tools, but where is the reference guide for how the company operates? So it just became like a more natural need for businesses, and
You
definitely
went,
helped.
yeah, you went from a want to a need pretty damn quick, I would imagine. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
like as you mentioned, you were dealing with only those proactive, smart people. Someone come in, you're like, oh, this person's they're on top of it. They know they're moving forward. They're already winning, and now they're getting ahead of things. And then all of a sudden, the proverbial stuff hits the fan, and now probably got people going, hey, like I need this done yesterday.
right, right.
Yeah.
The other crazy thing was like, a lot of businesses had employees that, at the beginning of COVID, they're not sure what they're going to do, but these people were stripped out of their day-to-day responsibilities. Like if the business closed,
Mm,
if the restaurant closed or something,
sure.
you got people on payroll. One of the backlog things for everyone is, oh, let's get our processes in order. Like, we've been wanting to do this for a while. And so we had a ton of people that were like, I'm sitting at home and I guess this is what I'm going to work on now. And so they
Wow.
started to put some structure in the business.
That's great, man. That's I mean, what a beautiful that's when you make money, right? When everything's down, that's when you get ahead. And you see it so many times, people who take advantage of these opportunities, because these are the people who will be ready to flex and move the next time the market shifts or changes, because they're capable, they're flexible now because of this tool that you have now. Absolutely love it, Chris. So question for you. We've been talking a lot about rapid growth right now in software for sales services and all these different things. The SDR in marketing, there's this great conversation that goes on a lot right now. The SDR role, and is it something that should continue to grow, or are we looking for a one platform for one salesperson to handle from beginning to end, or are we looking to move SDR back towards marketing where it originated from? What are your ideas on the SDR role, and how do you work with SDRs to develop them in your area of business?
So I'm a fan of specialization. I think, but it depends a lot on the price point. It's the same reason that like, you could have an artisan that creates a product start to finish, and it's this crazy high priced product, but because they can only make so many a year,
Mhm.
that's a model where you've got one person doing everything. And so if a business has a sales rep that is selling a super high ticket item and it requires a ton of relationship building, then an SDR can kind of get in the way and hurt the relationship by a person feeling like they're being handed off. And so if it's a high ticket thing, I think that someone can encompass all that. If it's more of a transactional kind of thing, then you think like the assembly line. You want to specialize and have each person doing a small piece and get really, really good at it. And so I think what's happened, and maybe why the SDRs have struggled a little, or why there's a conversation, is that there is such a movement of this like spamming people on LinkedIn, or like the outbound inertia that you have to do, the volume that you have to do, almost can create more harm for the brand than it does good. And so I think people are reconsidering, what role does marketing have to play in this to precondition people to get people to where they're looking to talk to someone. And then if people are almost raising their hand or they're receptive to the brand, and you've got like an entry level, so almost like a support rep or something that is fielding the one-to-many questions and helping, then they can tee someone up to the relationship manager, which is a different role. So I think it's going to be different for every company depending on the price point of what they sell, the volume that they're selling. But where people get stuck is when they're just kind of spraying and praying and causing more harm than good.
Absolutely, man. That is a beautiful, logical response. Most people want to say the absolute of one way or the other, but it's not a one shoe fits all. Every system needs its own path and journey for the customer. And I think that you're exactly right. It is the spraying and praying, the lack of intent and integrity that really puts me off sometimes. I think, the obvious form letter in long paragraph, like even sometimes, like even if you're going to at least be good at it, I'll let someone hit me up with some automation. And if they track my eye and they get me, I'll respond to that person, even if I'm not interested in what they're selling, just because I respect the game that much. If I get 3 paragraphs after I just accepted your friend request and it hits me like that, you're blocked, I'm done. You're right. It is complete relationship terrorizing.
Yeah, it really is. And on the high end, like I mentioned, I just had this experience. I bought this like concierge medical thing, which was a really like high ticket experience. And I spoke to somebody for one call, and it was almost like I was qualified, and then I was handed off, and it made me kind of scratch my head and think, like, this is health stuff we're talking about. This is a sensitive relationship kind of thing. And
Yeah.
I would have much preferred that the client coordinator, or whoever was that is like managing the experience, the account manager, was the one that took the initial call. And I don't think that's an example where I don't think that extra role provided value. I think it actually hurt my experience. So I think this is different for every company.
Absolutely. And y'all heard what he said there, right? Maybe think about it from the customer's experience and not what makes sense to you, which I think is a huge piece that most people kind of leave on the table as well. All right, one more question for you here about something else that you're rocking. All right, tell me about organized chaos. All right, first off, the concept I love, because you're a systems and processes guy. I kind of catch this. So tell me about organized chaos in this podcast and what you guys talk about here.
Yeah, so organized chaos, it's actually a throwback to the name of my consulting firm before I started Trainual. So quick background on me. I had a video production company that I started in high school, grew to 300 camera operators and 3 offices. We were doing events around the country. And after 12 or 13 years, I sold that business. And what I loved so much about that business was building the systems and processes and tinkering with how we get more efficient and how we have workflows for everything and how we subdivide roles and responsibilities and how we find and train people. Like, that was really my passion in the video business, more so than the tech. And so when I sold that company, I looked at all these like entrepreneur peers that I had and how much of a mess their businesses were. And I thought, like, let me help. What can I do? So I started going business by business by business and just helping them clean things up and get organized. And I called the company Organized Chaos. And so that's where Trainual as a product evolved from, was my consulting firm. And once Trainual became the business and we shut down the consulting, the idea of the podcast, Organized Chaos, was just, it's a throwback to all the chaos that we're dealing with and navigating a lot of these business decisions that hit us as we're scaling. And so as I'm growing Trainual, as I'm interviewing other people, as I'm participating in events, this is just a place to publish all that content, all those insights. And so it's a daily podcast that goes out with just little helpful tidbits. And then we do some longer form interviews with authors and things like that.
Awesome, man. Yeah, ever since I tracked this guy down, he's been a great follow on LinkedIn, y'all. So make sure that you definitely get on this guy's follow. Very entertaining. So and here's the other thing too. So I'm loving these podcasts. We actually have a podcast studio we're launching here in Austin. We've got a ranch called Music Hill Ranch. Dixie Chicks used to own it. A recording studio Willie Nelson recorded in, and a bunch of other great stories. So we're actually going to start recording the podcast from the ranch, so I can start doing live guests again and like getting some people in. So next time you're in Austin, Texas, man, you have to come through. We'll have to do this again sometime.
Oh, that would be fun. That would be so
yeah,
cool.
But so you've also got another podcast. So this is the tips and bits. This is the thing. But the other one, fastest growing companies, which is scaling culture. Now, how much we're going to talk about fast growing companies as well, but I wanted to ask you the question. What correlation and how much of a correlation do you see between companies with good culture and companies that scale?
Oh man, it's, I think scale is is probably a short-term focus for some companies. And so I would say companies with a great culture are the companies that endure. That is the correlation. Companies can scale without a great culture, but then you burn people out, and it's ups and downs. And companies with a great culture can endure, and over time, that endurance looks like scale. People can look at Trainual and think it's a overnight success story or something, but it took us our first couple years to get to like a couple $1,000s a month when it was just me. And now it's a worldwide kind of brand, but I think companies with a great culture endure.
Yeah, that's a great point too, right? Because anybody can scale. You can hire fast, but how long do people stay? How long do they retain? How happy are your customers in the long term? Right? All these different pieces.
Are they repeat buyers? I'm sure people listening to this, if you're a great salesperson, you could sell someone anything. But then if it doesn't work out for them and it wasn't actually a fit for their business, are they going to buy from you again? Or are you going to lose that customer and have to replace them next year? The scale can happen artificially, but endurance is what business is all about.
Scale can happen, and a lot of people scaled artificially over COVID and quarantine and had no idea how it was happening, and now have no idea why it's not happening. And so and I talked to several companies who were scrambling because they were just eating. They didn't know what else to do, and they rode the wave. You're 100% right, and now that wave is coming back, as waves often do. And those true companies we do a lot of culture work, our sister company Envision You, and we do a lot of work with in the mortgage industry, and we worked with Quicken Loans, and they got the #2 company to work for next to Google, and they've stayed there for so long. Home Point Financial now doing the same thing, both of them with amazing strong cultures, but the mortgage industry is one that just wipes people out every 5 to 10 years. Right. And you're right, it is culture that endures.
Yeah. So on the podcast, the fastest growing companies, that culture thing is the thread that weaves throughout every episode. The concept behind that podcast was, you hear about all these lists all the time, Inc. 5000 or the Forbes top 1000 or whatever it is. And all of them are celebrating revenue growth. And so when you look at revenue growth, that's maybe one metric, but what's happening behind the scenes to enable that revenue growth? That's what the podcast is all about. Like, how are your operations changing? How are your teams changing? How are you delegating? How are you shifting responsibilities? What did you learn that was, so key to the niche you focused on, or the channel that you found and unlocked? And so that's what fastest growing companies is about. It's about finding the people that have had obscene revenue growth and then pulling the curtains back and saying what happened on the inside.
Man, very cool, very cool. And it is always that those strong pieces on the inside, those strong characters, those strong influencers, those strong values usually, that are the reason somebody got there. Because it's very easy to move. I mean, the market things change so fast. It's very easy to get swayed by these markets and not stay true to what you believe is true. But this generation of new employees, man, they'll tell you the truth real quickly because they'll leave. Cultures, I think that's the big thing I'm seeing right now too. That you can't fake culture. A lot of companies are out there trying to pretend that they're a good culture, but then they're being disrupted right away because they're not following what they preach. They're not bringing the actions.
Right. It used to be, I remember even when I was consulting, and this was like 6 years ago or 7 years ago, there was this scarcity mindset of employees staying in jobs they didn't really like, or they didn't really feel valued in, but they stayed because the idea of finding a new job seemed so difficult. And it's totally flipped now. It's
completely different than when we came up.
Yeah, it is an employee's market. Anyone can leave at any time and probably make more money. And, that puts a lot of pressure on the businesses to have an environment and a community that makes people want to be a part of it, because that's the unknown. That's what you don't know what you're getting. You can't compare one salary to another without taking into account the environment, the culture, the product you're working on, the work-life balance, or whatever you call it, that comes into play. Business opportunities are so different. And so it's up to companies, in the same way that you want to attract your target customer, you have to attract a target employee that is a good fit for your culture, that's going to be successful within your culture.
And you attract what you are, y'all. You can't fake that. That's that's the truth.
Yeah.
So how are y'all handling this shift of quarantine work to non-quarantine work, out of office to in office? Are y'all having, I mean, do y'all have a headquarters there in Scottsdale?
We do, but hardly anyone comes in. So
Okay.
it's been an evolution. You know, at the beginning, pre-quarantine, pre-pandemic, we had an office that everyone came to roughly 4 days a week. You know, we
Okay.
always had this flexible schedule where you could work a day or two at home if you wanted to, and we value results more so than time. But as a norm, people came into the office because of the community and the
Yeah.
environments, and they liked being there. Once everybody stopped coming in, and we actually had to vacate an office. Our lease was ending mid-pandemic, so we were like, I don't know what we're going to do.
Yeah.
We went remote for 5 months, and that was difficult. You know, it was difficult to not see people face to face, not have those connections, and getting people to stay on the Zoom call for another hour to just talk about their life or something is, you know, it's
Yeah.
not that engaging. And so we've settled in on this kind of hybrid work where we've started hiring people, you know, all across the U.S. The team's grown tremendous, 400% since pre-pandemic.
Ooh.
So a lot more people here, but we have an office, a new headquarters, but there's zero requirement for anyone to come in. And so, you know, of our team split, we've got maybe 60% in Arizona where we're based, 40% spread around the rest of the US or the world. And we've made a commitment to bring people together 3 times a year. So it's, you know, once toward the end of the year as like a annual kickoff for the next year and sort of
Mhm.
a year-end celebration. Once in the middle of the year as a company retreat where we all fly somewhere and do some fun things for a couple days. And then one other time that every remote person can fly in to the office and get put up, all expenses paid, to spend a week at headquarters when their teammates will come in and see them. So that's how we've treated it.
Yeah, it's very cool. I'm hearing a lot of the, this similar conversation out there. You know, it's almost contrast. You know, like, well, I don't have to. I never had to go in before. Why do I have to go in now? Well, you never had to stay home before. You know, it's just the contrast that we're swinging. I think, it's people get comfortable with doing what they're doing, I agree that I believe even the employees miss that connection. And even though some of them may not feel it right now, or may think they're getting it somewhere else, I think the company's better for it. And I think it's coming up with creative ideas on how to get people there, how to make it advantageous, not only for them while they're there. I mean, you can't just have a party every time you
Yeah.
come into work, but to
Yeah.
have co-working events, and how to bring different departments together for these mix-ups, which people get to meet people that they've never met before that are in the company for the last 10 years and they've been there,
Yeah, and I think people, you know, obviously people can do just as good of work or better work and be more productive from home. And so giving people the flexibility to do your work wherever you want is great. But I still think that it's up to us as businesses to invest in community building and invest
Yeah,
in culture. And that's where I see the role of the office being in the future. It's a place where people can get together, they can collaborate if they want to, and then they divide and conquer. It's not a place
absolutely.
where everybody has to come in and do everything.
Absolutely. It's almost like the work coffee shop now, right? Like,
Yeah.
a social gathering place with stations of work that you can get things done, but to create collaboration, and but also feel warm and inviting, right? They have to have as a workforce, we've got to redefine what we see it as, and we gotta play the other extreme.
Hmm.
Like there's this idea that you can just kind of, we'll put cupcakes out and we'll have like free lunch every. You're going to have to go over there a little bit to get them to come back. And then once they come back, they'll realize that they were there, why they really came back. They may have got lured in by the this or that, but they came because the company, they came because the connection, the
Hmm.
touch, the human contact is something that we really, really miss, as much as we, maybe don't realize it right now. Workplace community is a very valuable thing. And I think, finding creative ways to do it is fun. I mean, the workplace is going all beanbags and ping pong tables anyways. I mean, that's almost where it needs to go now again.
Yeah, it just took it to the extreme. We got rid of all the desks, so now it's just like a party place.
But it's workstations, but also, like you said, it's these retreats. It's maybe day to day isn't needed anymore, but those 3 impactful weekends that they have every year are enough to anchor them in through those times when they're not.
Right. Right. Exactly. I think that it's those moments that they share together where they're building memories, they're, getting to know each other better, they're doing activities outside of work. I think that kind of relationship is what gets you through harder conversations and conflicts and makes you comfortable, sharing your ambitions with your manager or something like that. Whereas if you don't have that personal connection, it's really hard to feel the same way about the people you work with.
That's so true. So I have to ask you, when I first saw your article, or the article came up on Fox there, the first thing that came to my mind was Zappos.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever do the tour over? I got it right here too. Hold on.
Yeah, I'm looking to see if I have the book Delivering Happiness.
I got this one right here. This guy here.
Oh, the culture book.
The
Yeah,
culture
I've
book
got
too.
some of those too.
I got the Zappos. The book by what's my man, R.I.P.
I know, Tony Shea.
Yeah, Tony.
Yeah. So I did this thing. Tony was building the downtown project there, and when it was brand new, I got an invite to go do a tour, and so I got to go through Tony's apartment and through
cool.
a lot of the
little trailer
building and yeah, tour their full headquarters before they moved into the old town hall or whatever it was.
Sure.
Yeah, so the old headquarters I've been through. Yeah.
Oh wow, the OG. I went and saw the new one, and it was quite impressive. But just the idea of delegating. I think I saw this somewhere in your copy somewhere, but the power of delegating and empowering people. I think this is the I can't remember the name's slipping me right now, but not a holacracy. Thank you. There we go. The idea that there's not just a senior management, middle management, and then everybody straight up the ladder, but that people are empowered to do their own things. And I think now more than ever, this generation of workers, they're entrepreneurs, they're creators, they're home life balance. I think there's just so much more of a need of this empowering people and giving them that freedom to create and do.
Yeah, delegation has this like dirty word context to it where it sounds like a mean thing. Like you're delegating, you're telling everybody what to do. And really, if you're just giving people task after task after task and you're farming out work to them and they keep coming back to you for more tasks, then you're not really delegating. You're telling people what to do. But if you're giving people ownership over certain responsibilities in the company, then you're empowering them. You're saying like, here's something you can own. Here's something you can improve for the business. Here's something you're going to do every day, not just once because I asked you to do it, but anytime it needs to be done. This is your job. This is part of what you own. That's empowering for people. That's them taking on more responsibility. That's them elevating their own career and increasing their own capacity for doing harder things. And I think empowerment is what we should be talking about is handing off areas of the business, not handing off tasks.
Man, you preach, man. That I absolutely love that, because it's the old parenting thing, right? You're when you empower people, you're teaching them to fish, right? When you give people orders, you're feeding them, and they will always depend on you. They will always need that external motivation to do anything. When you're empowering people, you're creating another creator. You're giving birth to somebody else that can do the same things that you did and more. And that's powerful.
I remember the first time I ever had a virtual assistant. I had to learn this. I had to learn this how to empower someone instead of just give them tasks. But they would email me like every morning, like, Chris, what do you need done today? And I'm like, I need to sit around and think up a list of stuff to give them. And then I'm giving them like the lowest priority things, because it's like I'm trying to just drudge up ideas like, oh, how about you look into this? And like, my mom's birthday is in 4 months. Maybe you could, search Amazon for, but when you're taking up so much of your own time to figure out what to give to other people, that should be the red flag. When you've delegated responsibilities and empowered other people, it makes your life easier. You're taking things off your plate indefinitely. And that's when people can thrive, is when they feel like they're putting a job together for themselves that's sustainable and not looking for a new job every day.
Absolutely. And it feels good to be empowered, right? It's fulfilling. It feels good to empower somebody. And that's the type of, if we go back to culture, I think this is a lot of those thriving cultures that we see, though, those empowering cultures. And it's a long-term play, y'all. For sure. Yeah, you might have to guide and fix some mistakes at the beginning, but those are things that you have to do a couple times and then they're done. And then you're good to go. And so I just love the idea, because I've been in those positions of where I've gotten orders every day and somebody thought that they're just delegating to me. I'm like, I just take orders from you and it is so frustrating and unfulfilling. Like I would do the same things, but if I got to choose them, I would enjoy my day a hell of a lot better,
Right. Yeah.
And I think
100%.
some people just want that freedom to make choice. And I think giving that freedom is such a beautiful opportunity. So tell me about y'all. What are the plans for the next couple of years? How are we growing, scaling? What's new? What's coming?
With Trainual, well, a
I
lot's
mean, Chris
happening.
Ronzio, you got a lot going on. So I'm going to talk about the podcast with Trainual. What do you got going on?
Well, the podcast is just consistency, as you probably know. Getting stuff out there and continue delivering value. So that's the podcast. That won't stop. I speak at a lot of events. Events are starting to pop up again, so I'll be doing a lot more of that. In terms of Trainual, we're hugely product focused right now. We initially in the business, like I mentioned, grew it out of my consulting firm. Never intended to raise any outside capital. Bootstrapped it. We were doing really well. And all of a sudden we're getting inbound interest from VCs. And so we ended up raising a couple of funding rounds, and that's just propelling our product development. And so it's been really cool to bring on, top engineers and designers and product managers and build something that's going to be a real big part of a small mid-sized businesses in the future. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's what we're working on.
I love it. And listen, if y'all want to grow and y'all want to sustain that growth, you need systems and processes. And if it's not your strength, be aware of that. Leverage that out to somebody who's it is their strength.
Call it out at least. If like what anybody listening to this can do, if you're not the systems person, you're not going to sit down and do this work. You can at least point out the inconsistencies. And I know every sales team out there has a high performer and a low performer, right? Like there is a spectrum of performance on every team. And if you dive into that, you realize people are doing things differently. And so how do you replicate the success of your top performers? You got to unpack what they're doing and write down some process that you can train everybody else on. So this is a way to up-level everyone in your department, your organization, and to up-level you. If you need this support, ask the best performers to write down what they do. That someone else can do the work.
Now, I was going to ask them for a good tip, but I didn't even need to ask, y'all. There's your tip of the day, sales leaders. Ask your best lead people what they're doing, have them write it down and duplicate that through the office. And if you need someone to help you, call my man. You got someone, he's got some tools for you. Chris, thank you so much for being here, brother. Definitely had a lot of fun getting to know you here. And I hope you come through Austin and come through the ranch and be a guest on the podcast again soon.
That sounds fun. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, y'all. Y'all know what to do. Make sure you go down and click on all them stars. And we'll see you again on the next episode. Thanks, y'all, for being here. Cheers.